President Donald Trump has fueled a seismic debate tonight, doubling down on his promise to drastically reshape US immigration policy. Following a deadly attack in Washington, the president took to social media, vowing to implement a permanent pause on migration from all third world countries, a sweeping escalation of his administration's efforts to crack down on unauthorized and disruptive populations. He's also pledged to end all federal benefits for non-citizens and to deport those deemed non-compatible with Western civilization. The move is being hailed by supporters as necessary action to restore order, citing surging border apprehensions and security concerns. However, critics are sounding the alarm, warning that such a blanket ban risks catastrophic economic fallout. Mass deportations and a reduction in migration could reduce US GDP by billions, crippling vital sectors like agriculture and healthcare that rely heavily on immigrant labor. The White House faces immediate legal challenges and global criticism over the plan's feasibility and its scope. It's a huge concern indeed. Well, joining us now to look at this, Rohit Sharma is an immigration expert, Prashant Ajmera, Professor Richard Painter, Raymond Vickery, and Sudhanshu Kaushik. Professor Painter, let me come to you first. Just what Donald Trump has said, I will permanently pause migration from all third world countries. Is that legally tenable?
Well, generally, Congress sets the immigration policies, and it's the job of the President of the United States to enforce the immigration policies of this country. And what we have here is that President Trump just wants to make his own immigration policy. He is correct that some previous administrations have failed to enforce the laws on the books, what Congress allows and does not allow with respect to immigration. There certainly were failings during the Biden administration, but that doesn't mean that President Trump gets to make immigration policy on his own. He needs to work with Congress, and there are critically important economic issues here because our country has, for ever since our founding, depended on immigrants to grow our economy. And we have immigrants from all over the world, and I'm not sure what the term third world really means anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
We have some of the largest economies in the world, India, China, Brazil. I don't know what world he wants to say those economies, those countries are in, but we have many immigrants from all over the world, and there's no evidence that immigrants are more likely to commit crimes than other people. We have crazy people of all sorts from all different races, including people whose families have lived here in the United States for generations who go off and commit crimes. But the vast majority of Americans, the vast majority of immigrants are here to work hard and to help grow our economy and live the American dream.
Raymond Vickery, I think the statement, I'll permanently pause migration from all third world countries, has many around the world wondering what exactly is a third world country in today's day and age. For example, would India still be considered a third world country?
Well, I guess third world, I guess the phrase.
Thank you very much for having me. It's perfectly apparent that you have to have a reasonable immigration policy founded on bedrock principles of the United States, namely that all men are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. That doesn't say first world people or second or third world. It says all people, and that's been a bedrock of United States law in terms of how we deal with the rest of the world. What Trump is doing now is opting, when he says third world, for a form of xenophobia. And that is to try to rile up politically his base by pointing to people who are different, supposedly foreigners. And would that include Indians and Indian Americans? In many minds of MAGA supporters, it certainly would. And it is a disastrous approach from any perspective you look at it, from a from a financial and building prosperity economic situation. Indian immigrants to this country, Indian Americans, are the highest per family income group. All you have to do is look at the major companies of the United States, and you'll see Indian Americans there. So this is nothing more than what Trump is trying to do with his henchman, Stephen Miller, and that is to stay in power by xenophobia. This is not going to work. We have elections coming up in this next year, midterms, and I predict that this will be a major factor in his erosion of power. It's very regrettable as an American. It's particularly ironic coming just after Thanksgiving when we have celebrated immigration to the United States and the Native Americans sitting down with the immigrants.
Yes.
The president is married to an immigrant, and he wants to divide somehow. And it's obvious that this is not only xenophobic, but has a strong racist and other implications.
Sure.
So this is a
yeah, no, it is.
approach.
Mr. Vickery, half a second. I just want to go back to Professor Painter. I found another statement, Professor Painter, fairly astounding when Trump says that he might denaturalize migrants who undermine domestic tranquility and deport any foreign national who's a public charge, security risk, or non-compatible with Western civilization. What exactly is Western civilization?
This makes no sense. You can't denaturalize someone who's naturalized pursuant to the laws of the United States. We have laws in this country, and those laws are made by Congress, and the president's job is to enforce those laws. And so there's legitimate debate about what to do with the millions of people who are here illegally.
Yeah.
And obviously mass deportation is not going to work in that instance. But there's a debate about that. There's legitimate, but to simply take away the citizenship of people or the green cards, other authorized immigration under the United States laws, that's a seizure of power by the president of the United States, far exceeding what he has the right to do. And at some point, we're going to have the court step in and tell him that he simply can't do that.
Yep.
There's only so much presidential power we can tolerate in this country before we have a king in the White House. And that's exactly what our founders rebelled against when England and Great Britain sought to dominate the United States and have a king who would make the rules. And we have this issue with tariffs. The president thinking he could set his own tariffs. The president thinking now that he could deport people who are lawfully here. And what he's going to do is destroy our economy and our democracy at the same time. And more Republicans, conservative Republicans, are getting quite upset at this president. We saw Marjorie Taylor Greene from Georgia resign from Congress because of her disputes with a president who seems to think he could do anything he wants, whatever he wants, including the vindictive prosecutions. I mean, the list goes on and on.
Yep.
And we simply cannot tolerate this. It's not a question of Democrat or Republican, liberal or conservative. We need to live according to the principles set forth in our Constitution of our founders, which meant a limited power for the presidency, not what's going on right now.
Sudhanshu Kaushik, as Executive Director of the North American Association on Indian Students, how do you think things like this would impact the entry of Indian students to American universities? Indian students have been the largest international cohort of students at American universities. Indian families spend incredible amounts of their savings to pay international fees, send their children abroad, and then to try and live the American dream, at least as students, learn from the best American education systems. Why would anybody want to send their children to an America with this environment? Not just because of the immigration statement, but because of so many other norms. For example, social media is going to be vetted before you actually get an American visa. You will not be allowed to protest on campus, etc., etc. Is America becoming less attractive to Indian students?
Vishnu, I've been asking myself that question now for almost a year, over and over again. Every time there's news, an executive order, a new immigration rule, I keep asking, is it worth it? Is it worth it for those international Indian students or international students in general, but any immigrant that's trying to come to the United States? Now, I will argue that for a lot of people, it is still worth it. The ability to succeed in America is a shot that a lot of people want to take and are willing to have the risk appetite. What I do think is of a cause of concern is just not international students or Indian students, but overarchingly is how safe they are here in the United States, how safe they feel. Vishnu, you've spoken a lot about this in the past year, but the hate rhetoric specifically against not just immigrants, but Indian immigrants has skyrocketed. Texts, Twitter is a cesspool of people just trying to placate the blame on Indian immigrants and their success here. And so what I fear right now is not necessarily the fear of people being able to come in and succeed, but the fear of those that are already here, and how they can kind of go on being safe and sound as all these kind of contexts and issues go on, and this entire fear of being deported. Even though
Sudhanshu,
you
let me just
are
interrupt you for half a second. You said something interesting and frightening. I mean, as somebody who represents or speaks for Indian students in North America, in the United States rather, are you getting students who are saying that I am the victim of a hate crime, or I am the victim of a hate message? Not one odd student, but many, many more than what you've heard of or seen in the past?
So first is we've always had that,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Since the founding of our organization, we've had people call in, email, and say they're going through a racially motivated hate crime or instance. Thankfully, not as serious. Has the instance of racism / hate crime increased in certain periods of time that are reflective in today's time, especially now in 2025? Yes. I mean, these are kind of not necessarily instances of hate crimes that, let's say, for example, unfortunately go into death, or the victim is it's a serious crime, but rather even day-to-day monotonous kind of instances where you're shopping. I mean, just literally a month ago, I personally was in Wisconsin taking a vacation, and I, for the I think for in a very long time, went through at least a racist kind of incident, and from someone that was kind of unexpected, right? And so this kind of day-to-dayness, and because we are kind of spread out everywhere here in the United States, right? You'll find us in Madison, Wisconsin. You'll find us in Alabama. You'll find us in the big cities. These instances have been occurring all the time. So absolutely. Do I have, is there statistical kind of significance of these racial crimes kind of being such a big impact that will deter immigration and specifically Indian students? Maybe not, but it's something that people kind of think about over and over again as they come in.
Prashant Ajmera, what does this mean, this new ruling, to those who seek the American dream, whether it is seeking to move from an H-1B to a green card, or applying for an H-1B, as difficult as it is in the first place?
That is going to affect them because it's not very clear, and we all are making a guess on that. But basically, we have to understand that there are 4 ways the people become a permanent immigrants or a green card holder in USA. One is the family class sponsorship. The second one is we are talking about is the employment-based immigrations, where all the students converts from their H1 to a green card. The third one is an asylum seekers and refugees, and the fourth one is the rehabilitations, that the people are in Afghanistan and they were brought into USA's 75,000 of those ones. People are in crimes, and the government has decided to bring them in. And if you look at this one executive, the statement came just week before, where they said that they're going to recheck the immigration status of about 233,000 asylum seekers whose green card has been approved. I think the president is talking in that respect, and those people, and plus where the government has tried to brought in these immigrants who are coming from the war-torn zone like in Afghanistan and those ones, not related to the regular immigration, because those are the quotas are there, the law is there, passed by the Congress since last 32 years.
You know, Prashant, let me interrupt you simply because, I disagree. If you look at his statement, it says, and I quote, "I'll permanently pause migration from all third world countries," not all third world countries are warring nations, "to allow the US system to fully recover, terminate all of the millions of Biden illegal admissions, including those signed by Sleepy Joe Biden's auto pen, and remove anyone who is not a net asset to the United States or is incapable of loving our country, end all federal benefits and subsidies to non-citizens of our country, denaturalize migrants who undermine domestic tranquility, and deport any foreign national who is a public charge security risk or non-compatible with Western civilization." Rohit Sharma, how do you see the statement?
Yeah, in fact, to start with, incident like this is regretted. But as regard this, statement by Mr. President is concerned, I see it more as a knee-jerk reaction more than anything else. Because to say that overnight you can simply ban immigration, it is easy said than done. If you remember, this statement was made in 2017 as well. Now it is more to direct or to make comments about Mr. Biden's last, tenure with the US as president. And I strongly believe this is more towards, asylum seekers or the refugees that are living up there. And having said so, I actually also want to make a statement here, because rather than simply coming up with such breaking news of, and creating that kind of a perception in the mind of people, will start thinking, oh, US is closed, and so many parents, so many people who are actually thinking about migration already are there, start getting, panic because of all this. More than, giving such breaking news, Mr. Trump should actually look into that why in the first place we are talking about this illegal immigration has happened in US. So their infrastructure, their support system actually has to look into more deeply than anything else. And yes, he's right when he's saying that illegal immigrants and all that, he just want to see them off, and that should be taken care of. But I could sound a bit rude as well here, but to say that, because this has happened, so all the immigrants who are living up there become overnights, a threat to the US, because I think in the past we have seen so many crimes have happened, where people who are US citizens, even that has happened from their end. So immigration is going to go big time, and in fact, last year students have the maximum number of students actually have landed in US as well from India.
No, so are you saying that, no, so bottom line, Rohit, I'm out of time. Are you saying that this is, Trump's statement is, it's just what Trump says and he might change his mind? Or do you believe this might have some sort of genuine impact on immigration in America?
I think it is going to have a genuine impact more on the perception, how the people will start thinking about US, but to implement it, it is just beyond. I don't.
All right, gentlemen, I'm out of time. I'd like to thank you all very much for joining us. Another very problematic statement from the US president, one way or the other. Yes, that tragic loss of life to an American police, a security official outside the White House a couple of days back, by somebody from Afghanistan who was come into the United States after having worked with US forces in Afghanistan. Deeply, deeply sad, a horrific tragedy. But, to sort of cast all migrants in America with that same brush stroke, some would suggest, is very, very wrong. We leave it there. Thank you very much for being with us. What we'd like to do now is actually bring you more details of what the US president has announced, plans, in fact, for what he calls a permanent pause on migration from all third world nations, along with ending federal benefits for non-citizens.
A deadly shooting just minutes away from the White House. One National Guard member killed, another fighting for his life. The suspected gunman, an Afghan national, triggering yet another crackdown and a sweeping escalation of America's immigration crackdown. In a sharp response to what he called an act of terror against the US, President Donald Trump announced a permanent halt on migration from third world countries, an outdated Cold War era term used to refer to poor and developing countries.
This heinous assault was an act of evil, an act of hatred, and an act of terror. It was a crime against our entire nation. It was a crime against humanity. We're not going to put up with these kind of assaults on law and order by people who shouldn't even be in our country. We must now re-examine every single alien who has entered our country from Afghanistan under Biden, and we must take all necessary measures to ensure the removal of any alien from any country who does not belong here or add benefit to our country.
In typical Trump fashion, the US leader named no specific countries, nor did he clarify the criteria behind the sweeping label. However, he made it clear, any migrants or naturalized citizens undermining American security will be removed, and they will lose their federal benefits and subsidies. So what does this mean for India? For now, more uncertainty, as it remains unclear if India is even part of the country set to be targeted by the Trump administration. The escalation comes after the alleged gunman identified by officials as a 29-year-old Afghan national, Rehmanullah Lakhanwal, entered the US in a resettlement program set up by the Biden administration after the US military withdrawal from Afghanistan. However, unlike Trump's claims, the gunman was reportedly granted asylum this year under the Trump administration. While Lakhanwal was in the US legally, this incident further bolsters Trump's immigration agenda, targeting both legal and illegal immigration. Trump had earlier also ordered a widespread review of asylum cases approved under Biden administration and green cards issued to citizens of 19 so-called high-risk countries, a move reminiscent of his first term. One single act of violence has cascaded into a crackdown that could reshape America's immigration system, strain international relationships, and redefine who gets to enter the United States. America's next chapter on immigration may already be unfolding, and for millions, the impact could be immediate and irreversible. Disha Bagchi for NDTV.
All right. Another difficult, problematic statement by the US president. Will this be legally tenable? Let's see. For the moment, from all of us here, goodbye.